The great hall of the crystalline spires had stood for 10,000 years. Its walls were made of living crystal that sang when the wind passed through them. The floor was polished stone that reflected the light of 3 moons. And today, for the first time in 5 centuries, the hall was full. High Mage stood at the center of the ritual circle. His body was tall and thin, made of pale blue crystal that glowed softly from within. Around him stood the 12 members of the High Council, each one representing a different world of the Empire. They had come because they were desperate. They had come because they were dying. "The swarm has taken another system," said Archon. Her voice was like breaking glass. 17 worlds in the last cycle alone. Our fleets cannot stop them. Our armies fall like leaves in autumn. Nodded slowly. He had seen the reports. The swarm was a nightmare made real. Billions of creatures that thought as one mind, that hungered without end, that consumed everything in their path. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply ate and grew and ate again. "We have one option remaining," said, "the right of celestial binding." A murmur passed through the council. The rite was ancient magic, forbidden magic. It allowed the caster to reach across the walls between dimensions and pull an entire world from one reality into another. They had used it only twice before in their history. Both times had changed the course of galactic civilization. "We need soldiers," continued, "bodies to throw against the swarm while we prepare our final defenses. The rite will bring us a garden world, a peaceful planet with simple inhabitants. They will serve as our shield." "You speak of slavery," said Counselor. His crystal form flickered with unease. "I speak of survival," replied. "Would you rather we all die with clean consciences?" No one answered. They all knew the truth. The Empire had grown soft over of peace. Their warriors had become scholars. Their weapons had become art pieces. They had forgotten how to fight, and now the swarm was coming to remind them of the price of weakness. "Begin the rite," Archon commanded. Raised his arms. The other mages joined hands, forming a circle of power. Energy began to flow between them, ancient words falling from crystal lips. The air grew thick. Reality began to bend. In the center of the circle, a window opened. Through it, could see the vast darkness between dimensions, the impossible space where physics meant nothing and time flowed in all directions at once. He reached out with his mind, searching for a suitable world. He found one quickly, a blue and green sphere hanging in the void like a precious jewel. His scrying spells told him what he needed to know: oxygen atmosphere, liquid water, moderate temperatures, abundant life. Perfect. "I have found our garden world," he announced. "Prepare for the binding." The mages poured their power into the spell. The window grew wider, larger. Space itself groaned under the strain. And then, with a sound like thunder, the world was pulled through. It appeared in the sky above Prime, a new moon where none had existed before. The people looked up in wonder and fear. Ships were launched immediately to study this new addition to their system. Smiled, "It is done, we have our—" His words died in his throat. The sensor readings were coming back, and something was very wrong. "High Mage," said a technician, his voice shaking. "The atmospheric data, it does not match a garden world." Grabbed the report. His crystal eyes widened as he read. The planet's gravity was crushing, nearly 10 times what any could survive. The atmosphere was thick with oxygen, a gas that was technically breathable but highly reactive. The radiation levels from the planet's star were elevated, and the surface— "Show me," commanded. The viewing screens activated. The council watched in growing horror. Massive storms covered entire continents, spinning wheels of destruction that could swallow small moons. Mountains of fire belched smoke and molten rock into the sky. The ground itself moved, great plates of stone grinding against each other with enough force to level cities. The oceans churned with waves taller than buildings. "Zoom in on the life forms," Archon whispered. The screens showed them creatures from nightmare, massive predators with teeth like swords, packs of hunters that worked together to bring down prey twice their size, poisonous plants, venomous insects, parasites that laid eggs inside living hosts. Everything on this world seemed designed to kill everything else. "This is no garden world," said. "This is a death world. How could anything survive there?" "Perhaps nothing does," said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then the communications array detected something that made every mage in the chamber freeze. Radio signals, organized patterns of electromagnetic radiation, not random noise, but deliberate transmission. "There are satellites in orbit," reported the technician. "Artificial structures on the surface. Ships. They have ships." The death world was inhabited. Something had evolved in that hell, had survived, had thrived, had built a civilization. "What have we done?" Archon asked. Before anyone could answer, a new signal came through. It was a transmission from the planet, broadcast on every frequency at once. The translation systems worked quickly, converting the alien language into something they could understand. The message was simple. It was a question. "Who are you? Why have you brought us here? And what do you want?" Stared at the screens. The creatures that had sent this message were soft, fleshy things. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. By all logic, they should have died out millions of years ago on their hostile world. But they had not died. They had survived, and now, because of his spell, they were here. In the days that followed, would learn many things about the beings called humans. He would learn that they had survived ice ages that covered their world in frozen death. He would learn that they had survived plagues that killed half their population. He would learn that they had split the atom and held the power of stars in their hands. He would learn that they had not summoned victims for their war. They had summoned something far, far worse. But in that moment, standing in the great hall with the weight of his mistake pressing down on him, knew only one thing for certain. Everything had changed. The first 3 days after the event were chaos. On Earth, people had felt it, a shudder that passed through the whole planet, a moment of wrongness that made everyone stop what they were doing and look up at the sky. The sky that was now different. The stars were wrong. The constellations that humanity had named and studied for thousands of years were gone, replaced by unfamiliar patterns. And there were structures out there, massive artificial stations, ships, a civilization. Governments went to maximum alert. Military forces prepared for invasion. Religious leaders declared the end times. Scientists argued about what had happened. The internet crashed 17 times from the traffic. But humans, being humans, adapted. It took 72 hours for the United Nations to form the Emergency Terran Council. Representatives from every nation gathered in Geneva, setting aside old grudges and conflicts. There would be time for politics later. Right now, they had to survive. The scientists worked fastest. They studied the residual energy from whatever had moved their planet. They analyzed the alien signals they were receiving. They calculated, theorized, and tested. Within a week, they had figured out how to respond. Dr. Sarah led the communications team. She was a linguist, an expert in finding patterns in unknown languages. She had spent years studying ancient dead languages. Now she was trying to decode a living alien tongue. "The grammar is different from anything on Earth," she reported to the council. "But the underlying logic is similar. They use mathematics as a base, just like we do. I think I can establish basic communication." "Do it," said Secretary General Martinez. The first exchange was simple. Numbers, mathematical constants, proof that both sides could think, could reason, could understand. Then came images, star maps, pictures of their respective species, basic information about biology and technology. The aliens called themselves the. They were crystalline beings who lived for thousands of years. They had an empire spanning hundreds of star systems, and they had brought Earth here on purpose. They want to meet in person, Doctor reported. They are offering to open a gateway. The council debated for 6 hours. Some wanted to refuse to stay isolated until they understood the situation better. Others wanted to attack, to show strength before the aliens could strike first. But in the end, the majority voted for diplomacy. Ambassador Wei was chosen to lead the delegation. She was 53 years old, a career diplomat who had negotiated peace treaties in war zones and trade agreements with hostile nations. She was calm, clever, and absolutely unafraid. "Remember," she told her team as they prepared to step through the gateway, "we do not know what they want. We do not know if they are friends or enemies, but we are representatives of Earth. We will be polite, we will be firm, and we will not show fear." The gateway was a circle of light that hurt to look at directly, walked through without hesitation. Her team followed. The other side was beautiful, crystal spires reaching toward an alien sky, 3 moons hanging overhead, air that tasted strange but breathable, and waiting for them, a group of tall crystalline beings that glowed with inner light. High Mage stepped forward. He had practiced this greeting in the human language. "Welcome, small ones. We have brought you here to serve the Empire." His expression did not change. "Thank you for the welcome. However, I must correct a misunderstanding. We do not serve anyone but ourselves." Blinked. This was not the response he had expected. Every other species they had contacted had shown proper respect for superiority. These creatures should be grateful they had been chosen. "You misunderstand," he said slowly. "You have been summoned to fight in our war. The swarm threatens our empire. You will be our soldiers." "I see," said. Her voice remained pleasant. "And why do you believe we would agree to this?" "Because you have no choice. You are in our space now. Your technology is primitive. You are soft, short-lived creatures. Surely you understand your position." Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a woman who had negotiated with warlords and dictators, with men who had armies at their command and blood on their hands. Was ancient and powerful, but he had never faced anything like her. "Let me tell you about humanity," she said. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages that froze our world. We survived plagues that wiped out half our population. We invented weapons that could destroy our entire species, and we chose not to use them. We have been at war with each other since we first learned to hold a rock. We are very, very good at it." She stepped closer too. He was 3 times her height, but somehow she seemed larger. "We are not your soldiers. We are not your servants. But tell me about these. What kind of threat could make an empire this powerful so desperate?" Hesitated. Then he ordered the screens activated. The council chamber filled with images of the swarm. Creatures of chitin and hunger, moving in waves that covered entire continents. Worlds stripped bare, their populations consumed. Fleet after fleet of ships destroyed, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "They do not negotiate," said. "They do not retreat. They simply consume. Every species they have encountered has fallen." The human delegation watched in silence, saw the footage of battles, of desperate last stands, of entire civilizations being devoured. It was horrifying. But Colonel James, the military advisor, saw something else. He saw tactics that were predictable. He saw an enemy that relied on numbers rather than strategy. He saw weakness. "They use swarm tactics," he said. "No ranged weapons beyond basic projectiles. Limited strategic adaptation. No air superiority." Stared at him. "They are unstoppable." "No," said. "They are not. They have never faced anything like us." He turned to Ambassador. "Ma'am, I have seen worse in nature documentaries. We can fight this." Nodded slowly. She turned back to, "We will not be your servants, but perhaps we can be your allies. Show us everything you have on the swarm. Let us study your technology, and then we will talk about how to stop them." "You think you can succeed? where we have failed for 1,000 years. We do not think, said. We know. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not give up. We were not built for submission. She extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. So, High Mage, do we have a deal? Looked at this small, soft creature who showed no fear. He looked at the other humans, who watched him with eyes that held calculation and confidence. He looked at the screen still showing the horror of the swarm. He had summoned a death world species by accident. Perhaps it was time to see what that really meant. He reached out and took her hand. We have a deal. They expected the humans to need years to prepare for war. They had calculated the time required based on their experience with other species. First, there would be a period of panic and denial, then slow acceptance, then the long process of learning new technology and training soldiers. They were wrong. Earth transformed in 3 months. Factories that had made cars began producing armored vehicles designed for alien atmospheres. Shipyards that had built cargo vessels started constructing warships fitted with technology. Laboratories across the world worked day and night to understand alien science and make it better. Chief Artificer had been assigned to observe the human preparations. He was one of the greatest engineers in the Empire, a being who had designed starships and orbital stations. He thought he understood technology. The humans broke his understanding in the first week. This is impossible, he said, staring at the prototype in front of him. It was a human improvement on an energy weapon. The original design had taken scientists 200 years to perfect. The humans had improved it in 6 days. Dr. Sarah stood beside him. She had become the unofficial liaison between the species, a bridge between crystal and flesh. Is there a problem with the design? The problem is that it works, said. How did you do this? Our engineers spent centuries on this technology. We had motivation, Doctor said. Back home, if you could not adapt quickly enough, something ate you. We have had millions of years of practice. Watched as human workers swarmed over the factory floor. They moved with a speed and intensity that made him uncomfortable. They did not take breaks. They did not complain. They just worked, driven by something he could not quite understand. Your species confuses me, he admitted. You are so fragile, your lives are so short, yet you accomplish so much. That is exactly why we accomplish so much, Doctor said. We do not have time to waste. Every generation knows they will not see the end of our greatest projects, so we build for our children and they build for theirs. We are always running out of time. It makes us fast. Thought about that for a long time. Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out. Human soldiers trained in conditions that would kill any within minutes. High-gravity environments, extreme temperatures, low oxygen atmospheres. They pushed themselves to the edge of death and then pushed further. General oversaw the training camps. She was a hard woman who had served in 3 wars on Earth. She had seen the worst that humans could do to each other. Now she was preparing them to face something worse. The swarm fights through numbers, she told her officers. They overwhelm through sheer mass. Our job is to teach them that numbers are not enough. She designed training exercises that focused on defensive positions, controlled retreats, and coordinated fire. She taught her soldiers to see the enemy as a problem to be solved, not a terror to be feared. They are bugs, she said. Big, ugly bugs, and humans have been killing bugs since before we invented fire. This is what we do. The observers watched the training with growing unease. It was not just the physical abilities of the humans that disturbed them. It was their attitude. A young soldier took a wound during a training exercise. The injury would have been fatal to any, requiring immediate medical stasis and months of recovery. The human medic bandaged it in the field, gave the soldier an injection, and sent him back to training within an hour. You are hurt, Archon said to the soldier. Should you not rest? The soldier, a corporal named, looked at her with confusion. "It is just a scratch, ma'am. I have had worse playing football." "Football? A game we play for fun." Watched him return to the exercise, shouting jokes to his as he went. She had seen warriors broken by lesser wounds. These creatures treated injury as an inconvenience. Another incident stayed with her. A group of human engineers were working on a shuttle when they discovered a nest of small creatures in the machinery. The creatures were highly venomous, enough to kill instantly. "Clear the area," ordered. "We will need to decontaminate." A human technician reached into the nest with her bare hands. She pulled out the creatures one by one, examining them with interest. "Oh, these are like the snakes back home," she said. "Pretty little things." "They are deadly," said. "Only if they bite you." The technician gently placed the creatures in a container. "We will relocate them somewhere safe. No need to kill them." Stared, the humans were not afraid of deadly predators. They thought they were pretty. She reported her observations to the High Council. "We did not summon victims," she said. "We summoned apex predators. They do not see the universe as a place of danger. They see it as a place of opportunity." "What do you recommend?" asked. "I recommend we stay on their good side," said. "These beings survived a world that should have killed them. They conquered it instead. And now they are preparing to do the same to the swarm." The months passed. Human technology improved daily. Human soldiers grew stronger and more skilled. Human strategists studied the swarm and found weaknesses that commanders had missed for centuries. And then the day came when General declared the human expeditionary force ready for deployment. 50,000 soldiers stood in formation. They wore armor that combined the best of human and technology. They carried weapons that no swarm warrior had ever faced. They looked up at an alien sky and did not flinch. "The swarm has been winning for 1,000 years, told them. "They have never lost. They think they are unstoppable. They think they are the greatest force in the galaxy." She smiled. It was the smile of a predator. "They have never met humanity. They have never faced a death world species. They do not know what real survival looks like." She raised her fist. "We are going to teach them, and they are going to learn." The soldiers cheered. The sound echoed across the base, a roar of human voices promising violence to come. In the shadows and watched, they had seen armies before. They had seen warriors and weapons and wars. They had never seen anything like this. "May the cosmos help the swarm," whispered, "because nothing else will." Nexus Station hung in the void between stars. It was a massive structure, built over centuries to serve as a gateway to the core worlds of the Empire. It was the last line of defense. If Nexus fell, there would be next. The station had been designed for beauty, not war. Its crystal spires reached toward the stars like the fingers of a praying hand. Gardens floated in zero gravity, filled with plants from 100 worlds. Art galleries displayed the works of masters who had died 1,000 years ago. Now it bristled with weapons, human weapons, anything that could be mounted to a surface and made to fire. Generals stood in the command center, watching the sensor displays. The swarm was coming. 10 billion of them, according to the latest count. A wave of chitin and hunger that would wash over the station like a flood. "Contact in 6 hours, reported Lieutenant, no relation to the ambassador. "They are moving faster than expected." "They are hungry," said. "Good, hungry enemies make mistakes." Around her, the command staff prepared for battle. Human officers worked alongside advisors. They had learned to trust each other in the months of preparation. Now they would fight together. Archon stood at side. "Our fleets have never held against numbers like this. The station will fall." "The station might fall," agreed. "But we will make them bleed for every corridor. We will make them pay for every room. And when it is over, they will know that humanity is not prey." She turned to her communications officer. Signal all units, defensive positions. Hold until you cannot hold anymore, then fall back to the next line. Make them fight for every step. The hours passed. The soldiers took their positions. Some prayed. Some wrote letters to families they might never see again. Some simply checked their weapons and waited. Corporal sat with his squad in a forward defensive position. They had been given the honor of first contact with the enemy. It was not really an honor. It meant they would probably die. "Anyone else think this is crazy?" asked Private Williams, the youngest member of the squad. "Of course it is crazy," said. "We are fighting space bugs for crystal people who kidnapped our planet. Nothing about this makes sense." "Then why are you smiling?" Checked his rifle. It was a beautiful weapon, human engineering combined with energy technology. It could fire 500 rounds per minute, or a concentrated beam that could cut through armor. "Because back home I was a factory worker," he said. "I made cars. Now I am saving the galaxy. My grandmother would be proud." The squad laughed. It was the laughter of people who were afraid but refused to show it. It was the laughter of humans facing death. Then the sensors screamed, and the laughter stopped. They came like a tide, millions of them in the first wave alone, pouring out of their ships in a flood of black chitin. They had no strategy beyond overwhelming force. They did not need strategy. They had numbers. The first wave hit the human defensive lines, and the first wave died. Human weapons tore through the swarm like fire through paper. Energy beams cut down hundreds at a time. Explosive rounds turned clusters of warriors into scattered pieces. The defensive positions had been designed with overlapping fields of fire, so every approach was covered by multiple weapons. "Hold the line," shouted. His rifle grew hot in his hands. He had killed 100 of them already, 1,000. He had lost count. The swarm pushed forward over the bodies of their dead. They did not mourn. They did not hesitate. They simply came, wave after wave after wave. The first defensive line fell after 2 hours. The soldiers retreated in good order, falling back to the second line while laying mines and traps behind them. The swarm followed, hungry for the kill. They walked into a killing field. General had prepared surprises, explosives hidden in the walls, automated turrets that popped out of the floor, gas that was harmless to humans but deadly to the swarm's breathing systems. The second wave died even faster than the first. But the swarm adapted. Their hive mind learned from each death, each failure. They started avoiding the traps. They developed new approaches. They were not stupid, just different. "They are learning our patterns," reported Colonel. "Then change the patterns," replied. "Tell 2nd Battalion to go loud." 2nd Battalion was special. They had trained for this moment. When the order came, they activated their external speakers and began playing music. It was not the music of their soft crystal harmonies. It was human music, heavy metal, screaming guitars and pounding drums. It blasted through the station corridors at weaponized volume. The swarm had never heard music before. Their hive mind tried to process the sound and failed. It was chaos, noise, madness. For precious seconds, the warriors hesitated. And then 2nd Battalion charged. They did not fire from defensive positions. They did not wait for the enemy to come to them. They ran straight at the swarm, screaming war cries that had been old when humanity first learned to work metal. They fired as they ran, and when their weapons ran dry, they drew knives. The swarm had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had never faced an enemy that attacked them. They had never seen beings who ran toward death with joy in their hearts. Corporal led the charge in his sector. His rifle clicked empty, and he threw it aside. A swarm warrior lunged at him, all claws and teeth. He grabbed his helmet and beat the creature to death with it, shouting words in Spanish that his grandmother definitely would not have been proud of. Around him, other soldiers fought with the same ferocity. Fists, knives, entrenching tools sharpened to a razor edge. One private, a woman named Tors, killed 3 warriors with a broken bottle she had been saving for the victory party. The swarm fell back. For the first time in its million-year existence, the hive mind experienced something it could not process. Fear. These creatures were not like the others. They did not break. They did not surrender. They fought with a madness that seemed to enjoy the killing. The hive mind searched its vast memory for a comparison and found nothing. What were these beings? The battle raged for 18 hours. The station lost sections. Soldiers died by the thousands. But for every human who fell, 100 swarm warriors fell with them. General watched the battle unfold from the command center. She had not slept in 30 hours. Her voice was hoarse from giving orders, but she did not waver. "They are breaking," she said. "Push them." The human forces pushed. They counterattacked where the swarm was weakest. They reinforced where they were strongest. They fought with everything they had and then found more. And slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. The swarm had come with 10 billion warriors. After 18 hours of battle, they had less than 2 billion left. Their hive mind calculated the losses, projected the outcomes, and reached a conclusion it had never reached before. They could not win. The retreat began at hour 19. Swarm ships pulled back from the station, carrying the survivors away from this nightmare. They left behind a field of dead that would take months to clear. In the command center, silence fell. The officers stared at their screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. "They are running," Lieutenant whispered. "The swarm is running." General sat down heavily. She was exhausted beyond measure. 12,000 human soldiers had died in the battle. Each one had a name. Each one had a family. She would remember all of them. But they had one. Archon stood beside her, her crystal form dim with shock. "In 1,000 years the swarm has never retreated. Never. This is impossible." Looked up at her. "No, this is humanity. We do not know how to give up. It is not in our nature." She looked out at the field of battle, at the bodies of friends and enemies alike. "Tell the swarm we are coming for them. Tell them to run as far as they can. It will not be far enough." The days after the battle were quiet. The station was damaged, whole sections open to vacuum. Bodies still floated in the corridors that had not been cleared. The smell of death hung in the air despite the best efforts of the filtration systems. General walked through the memorial hall that had been set up in one of the surviving gardens. 12,000 names were carved into crystal walls. 12,000 lives ended far from home, fighting a war they had not chosen. She stopped at one name, Corporal. He had died holding a corridor alone for 7 minutes while his squad evacuated wounded soldiers. They had found him surrounded by the bodies of 43 swarm warriors, his knife still in his hand. "He was a good soldier," said Ambassador, walking up beside her. "He was a good man," replied. "He told me once that he used to make cars, that his grandmother would be proud of him." She would be. They stood in silence for a moment, paying respect to the dead. Around them, other soldiers did the same. Some wept. Some stood rigid. Some spoke quietly to the names of friends they had lost. This was what they could not understand. To them, soldiers were resources, numbers to be calculated, losses to be accepted. They did not hold memorials. They did not weep for the fallen. Humans did, every single one. "The swarm has sent a message," said finally. "They want to talk." Turned to face her. "The swarm does not talk, they consume." Apparently they do now, held out a data pad showing the transmission. One word, why. "Why what?" "I think they want to know why we do not break, why we do not surrender. They have never met anything like us before." Looked at the memorial wall at the names of the dead. "Then let us teach them." The response was crafted over 3 days. Ambassador worked with scientists, soldiers, and philosophers. They tried to capture what it meant to be human in a message that an alien hive mind could understand. In the end, it was simple. We are humanity. We are from Earth, a world that tried to kill us every day of our existence. We survived. We adapted. We conquered our planet not through strength alone, but through cooperation, creativity, and sheer stubborn refusal to die. You are a swarm, you survive through numbers. We survive through bonds. Every soldier who fell at Nexus Station had a name. They had families. They had dreams. We remember every single one of them. You ask why we do not break. The answer is simple. We fight for each other. We fight for those who came before and those who will come after. We fight because surrender is not in our nature. We have exterminated swarms before. Locusts that darkened our skis, plagues that killed billions of us, enemies who thought numbers were enough. You are not special. But we are offering you something no other species has, a choice. Stop your expansion, return to your territory, learn to coexist, or we will come for you. We will follow you to the darkest corners of the galaxy. We will hunt you across every star system you infest. We will not stop until you are gone, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many of us fall. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We were built for this. Choose wisely. The message was sent. The galaxy waited. 3 days later, the response came. The swarm was retreating, all forces pulling back to their original territory. No explanation, no negotiation, just withdrawal. High Mage received the news in the crystalline spires. He had watched the battle from afar, had seen the reports of human ferocity and sacrifice. He still did not fully understand what he had summoned. They actually did it, he said. They broke the swarm. Archon nodded, and now they want to discuss terms. Terms, they are the victors. They can demand whatever they want. That is what concerns me. Ambassador arrived at the spires a week later. She was accompanied by General, Doctor, and a delegation of human leaders. They walked into the council chamber with the calm confidence of people who knew their worth. Congratulations, said. You have accomplished what we could not. The Empire owes you a debt beyond measure. Yes, you do, replied, and we have come to discuss payment. The council chamber fell silent. Here it was, the moment they had feared. The humans would demand tribute, territory, resources, perhaps even submission. What do you want? Asked. Smiled. It was not the predator smile she had shown before. It was warmer, almost gentle. We want to go home eventually, she said. When you have the ability to return Earth to its original location, we expect you to do so. That is non-negotiable. And in the meantime, we will help you, not as servants, not as soldiers for hire, as allies. Blinked. You do not want revenge. We brought you here without consent. We intended to use you as disposable troops. We know, and we were angry about that, but we have learned something in our time here. The galaxy is bigger than our grudges. There are threats out there that require cooperation. The swarm might be contained, but they are not gone, and there will be others. She stepped forward. We did not ask to be brought here, but here we are. And while we are here, we might as well make ourselves useful. Show us what else needs fixing. Teach us about your galaxy. Let us help. Why? Asked. After everything we did to you, why would you help us? General answered. Because that is what we do. We see a problem, we fix it. We see people in trouble, we help them. It is not complicated. But we wronged you. Yes, and holding on to that anger would only hurt us. We honor our dead by building something better, not by seeking revenge. The council deliberated for hours. In the end, they accepted the human offer, a full alliance between the Empire and the Terran Council, technology sharing, military cooperation, cultural exchange. The news spread across the galaxy. The species that had broken the swarm was not seeking conquest. They were offering friendship. 1 year after the Battle of Nexus Station, The first human embassy opened on Prime. Ambassador cut the ribbon while General stood at attention. Crowds of citizens watched with curiosity and wonder. In the memorial garden, 12,000 names remained carved in crystal. Fresh flowers were placed there every day, brought by humans and alike. High Mage visited the memorial often. He would stand before the names and try to understand the beings who had given their lives for a people not their own. "I still do not fully comprehend you," he admitted to Doctor during one visit. "You are violent yet gentle, short-lived yet forward-thinking, fragile yet unbreakable." "We are contradictions," she agreed. "It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. We contain multitudes. I am glad we summoned you, even by accident." "So are we, eventually." In the darkness between stars, the swarm waited at its borders. It had learned a valuable lesson. There were things in the universe more dangerous than itself, things that should not be challenged. And on other worlds, on other death planets scattered across the cosmos, life continued its endless struggle for survival. Perhaps one day, they too would reach the stars. Perhaps they would meet humanity and learn that they were not alone. They had answered the call. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to survive, to fight, to hope. They would not be the last. On Earth, now hanging in an alien sky, children looked up at unfamiliar stars and dreamed of the future. A future their parents were building, battle by battle, friendship by friendship, day by day. It was not the future anyone had planned, but it was a future worth fighting for. And humanity had never needed more reason than that.